Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the EMP EDC Pulse R. Oh my gosh. This is wild. This is the type of stuff that puts a smile on my face because it is so different than anything else we have. Yes, it's a double action OTF, but this breaks the mold, right? What you would normally consider, like in your mind, if someone says double action OTF, it's only so many different shapes you can imagine because they all kind of stick to the same floor plan. And this is completely different. These are actually going to be available for pre-order tomorrow. If you're watching this on Friday, the exact date that I uploaded it, it's going to be available tomorrow. I'm going to link it right down in the description so that you guys can go and get ready and do whatever you need to do. There's going to be this version, I think a couple of different variations for scales. I watched his video on Instagram. You guys can go watch it if you want to. He goes over all the details, but a couple of different variations, I think, in scales and a couple of different blade shapes, either the Warren Cliff, that you're seeing here, which is hollow ground, by the way. Boy, we're going to talk about that. And then also a sort of bullet-shaped drop point blade. This is so cool. In Magna Cut, 63, 64 HRC. I mean, wow. And listen, the power. Oh my God. This is so powerful. It is, listen, I've had this knife for a long time. I have had this pre-production sample for a crazy long time. I have sat and played with this thing and fired it and retracted it, fired it, retracted it. I can't tell you how many hundreds of times. This has never failed. The OEM partner is a silent partner, which I don't like. I wish that OEMs would let us know. It's an overseas, it's most likely a Chinese OEM, but there's no, I don't know that information because it's a silent partner. Whoever it is did a really good job. And on top of that, these are all hand assembled and tuned by the gentleman behind EMP EDC, which is really cool. This does feel like a super high quality product. And I wanted to get that out there right off the bat. I've never had a failure with this thing. Thanks so much to EMP EDC for providing this knife for review. I don't get to keep this. I imagine they want it back, so I'll be sending it back afterwards. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Let's get through specs here. The overall length, because this is obviously a different size of OTF, right? Like dimensionally. The overall length here is actually, it's pretty good size. 8.35 inches with a 3.5 inch blade and 3.25 inches of cutting edge. We should do some size comparisons up against some other large OTFs. So the Combat Troodon, here it is up against the Microtech Combat Troodon. Obviously much taller, much wider, right? We can also do the new Hera 2. That's also like a giant OTF. And then these are like the traditional, when you think of like a large double action OTF, like this is kind of what we think of, So it's not quite like the same length, but it's hulking. Like it's huge. It honestly makes my Scarab feel kind of small, kind of dainty. And you would think the size of this, sorry, I'm spitting on it. This will come back to you with some spit on it. Sorry, I'll clean it off. You would think that this feels awkward. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to talk about it. It doesn't. It actually feels great. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons against some more, some common knives. Any custom skills you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. Look at it up against the 8010. Look at the size of this. Monstrous. This is an overbuilt, intentionally overbuilt OTF, right? I think the idea behind the design was let's combine his folder and the Pulse, like the standard one, right? This is a Pulse R, which, by the way, what does the R stand for? It literally stands for ridiculous. I'll probably do something creative like that in the title, but yeah, it's like it's meant to be a ridiculous Pulse OTF. Up against the 80 20.5, it's way bigger, right? How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Where are you? Why am I blind to the PM2? There we go. Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Still huge. Not like, they probably could have done like a 9-inch, like over 9 inches, but I think this was a good size. And then finally up against the Benchmade Group Tillion, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How is the action? Okay, so because we have an Ultim front scale, hold on. God dang. Because we have an Ultim front scale, we can see the size of the spring in there. This is no slouch. It's also throwing a huge blade. This has got to be one of the biggest blades that has ever been thrown out of, an OTF chassis. It's not just the thickness, but it's the height of this. It's a lot of material. It's a big blade to come out of a frame, right? I think they also did a really good job with the ratios here. It's so close. In fact, God, so I have to try pretty hard. I play with OTFs all the time. I play with ones that have, an enormous amount, that require an enormous amount of pressure to fire, right? But I've also, handled a lot of the stuff that's a lot easier to fire. And so I'm going to tell you guys, this takes a decent amount of force. Fortunately, your firing switch is nice and wide, and there's enough traction there. A lot of people I see, if you've never had an OTF before, they kind of do this. They kind of push down. You're doing too much work. You got to approach it from back here, get your leverage, and push straight forward. That will allow you to overcome that tension much easier. Pulling it back, same thing. This fires really hard. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to put it up against my Combat Troodon. The amount of force, not the ease of manipulating the new Combat Troodon. It's much easier because of their new switch, right? It just doesn't take as much force. The amount of force that the blade comes out versus this guy, this fires way harder. Way harder. It's crazy. Same thing with the Hera. Now, my most powerful double action OTF is definitely the Scarab. I got to be honest with you guys. This fires harder than the Scarab, man. This is wild. It's like recoil. This is like the shotgun of switchblades, man. God, that's wild. The power is so satisfying. This thing is just, it's overloading the senses because there's so many things here that you're just not expecting to see on an OTF or expecting to feel, right? You think you got a feel for a powerful double action. I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and say it's like twice as powerful, but I would say it's a good 20 to 30% more powerful. Like the amount of force that is throwing that blade. It's definitely, especially like the out, deployment is great, but man, pulling that thing back in, it's just like boom up against the palm. Wild. This is really cool. I really like the action. The action is incredibly satisfying. Really cool stuff. Okay, let's do carry profile up against the Spyderco pair thread. Slipped off of that. That actually hurt. I'm doing my best to pretend like I'm not in pain right now, but I slipped off of it. So just power through. It is reasonably thick. These are contoured scales, right? And it's a lot of object to hold. So it is comfortable, but it's a lot of object, right? Now, the dimensions, like the carry dimensions, this way, I guess. Length and height up against the PM2 and pair 3. It's tall and it's long. It's pretty easy to carry. I mean, it's not an insane object. It's like a really big lighter, right? Not that I would know. I've never needed to EDC a lighter, but that's what it reminds me of. So here you go. Lengthwise, it's about the same overall length as the PM2. Height-wise, it's actually about the same. It's just a continuous height because it's like a big rectangle, right? Way bigger than the pair 3. Materials. I believe, and I'll edit this if I'm wrong, I believe this is titanium. And the reason I believe that is because it looks and feels like titanium versus aluminum. A little heavier, right? But then again, I'm thrown by the dimensions here. And also, just considering his other knives, his other, the Pulse and the Nimble and all that's titanium. Like the other OTFs that he does is titanium. So, yeah. And then we have Ultim for the front scale here. I have to imagine he will offer something else besides Ultim. I know that there's a ton of people going, PP color, PP, Hive Mind NPC. I see that color and I have to say PP because I've been programmed to do that. Like, okay, yeah, he'll probably offer another color, but thank you for keeping that joke alive. Wow, that's a doozy. That's quite a knee slapper there. I've never heard anyone call it that. Oh, dehydrated P? Oh, okay, yeah, that's real funny. Yeah, the color does remind me of that. Yeah, 6 months later after the first time I heard that, or 9 months even. Wow, that's still kicking. Still a funny observation there. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, probably another color too. But yes, Ultim is the same color as P. But anyways, we have that. We have titanium. contoured, fragged, right? Titanium pocket clip, milled. Why there's no spot for lefties on this, I don't know. I have to imagine that would be fixed on the final production version. I have to imagine, right? This could be carried, just flipped over to the other side, right? Carried in the pocket here, and then the lefties, you just got to flip it over. I think you're still okay doing that. So it's not like lefties are completely left out. Is there a pun there? No, that's stupid. That's almost as stupid as the P.P. Holtum joke. But, yeah, you can. Like, if there's no option for, like, a correctly placed lefty clip, you can still carry this. You just have to pull it out and then flip it over and then fire it. Unless you have an unbelievably... Can I do this upside down with my index finger? I summon the strength. I don't have enough strength to do it. But if you do, then you're good to go. I wouldn't fire it like that. I would just flip it over and fire it, right? Lefties, you're going to... One extra step for lefties. How about a hardware check? So you can actually get into this, which is really cool. You got 6 screws in the front and probably going to need to remove those screws in the back. Get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Is this the T8? I have no idea. This one's even harder to read than the last one. Okay. Thank God. T8. Do any of these need... Oh, they do. I've been playing with this thing a lot. Oh, I'm glad I checked. Those 2 top ones. I mean it when I say I fired this. I mean, I carried it for a good long time. But the top screws, definitely those needed to be cranked back in there just a little bit. But that's fine. I mean, that's going to happen, right? You got to check those. Pocket clip screws, also T8. Those are totally fine. So, yeah. Yeah, T8, if you really need to get in there, it's not that complicated, right? Just make sure you got the right tools for the job. Weight on this guy. Probably a little bit of variation in the weight here. Well, that's a freaking heavy OTF. 5.7 ounces. How about the Scarab? It's heavier than the Scarab. This is a big OTF. This is a big OTF. So this guy is thunderous. Megaton, honka chonka, dump truck level OTF. This thing is huge. Okay, we need the calipers. Let's do blade stock thickness. Blade stock thickness on this guy coming in at not super thick, 122 thousandths. I think that's pretty typical for an OTF. All right, it's hollow ground. Hollow ground, yes. That's one of the benefits here. It was supposed to be ridiculous, like that was the idea there, right? But the benefit is, wow, it really slices. Something that you generally don't get with an OTF is really nice cutting geometry. Yes, they can cut. I'm not saying that a general, like your Combat Troodon's not going to cut. Sure, it will. This is going to cut better. On top of that, I like how this feels. I mean, it's just straight, but there's so much material, and it's on the thicker side, nicely chamfered down at the edges and contoured, right? Nice texturing. Pretty good. It feels really good. I'm not going to lie. I like it. It feels good. I enjoyed using this thing. It's fun. And every single person, man, every time I had this on, I was like, sorry, I'm getting excited here because I don't always get to review stuff like this, but everybody I talk to, if I had friends and family over to watch, a game or something like that, or we were at some sort of social event, there's always somebody there that knows that I'm carrying a weird knife. Now, I mean, at this point in my social circle, everybody knows that I've got something really crazy that they've never seen before in my pocket. They know what I do for a living. So at some point, somebody asks. And I love waiting until somebody asks me, what are you carrying? And when I had this, man, everybody wanted to see this. This was so fun to pass around to my buddies. Everybody was like, this is crazy. A lot of them had never handled a double action OTF. But one that looked like this, they were just like, I didn't even know stuff like this existed. Every single one of them was hyper impressed, and they all were, at first they were kind of taken aback by how much force it took to deploy it. But once I said, hey, stop coming at it at an angle, you got to come down here and push it forward, right? Once they got it, their faces just lit up, man. it's such an experience to fire this thing. It feels so good. But once you figure it out, you can, like you can see there, I got it with my index finger. If you get the right leverage and come from the right angle, then you're good. It's just incredibly satisfying. The blade is really cool, obviously taken from their, I keep forgetting it, was it the Nimble, right? I think they took that idea with that blade. You got the flat here, this super aggressive Warncliffe razor thing, right? Incredibly utilitarian. Not a lot of tip on this guy, but enough, right? You can still puncture with it. The other version of the blade will be this bullet-shaped drop point blade, which if you really need a tip and you need some belly, you can go with that one, but this is fine. Aggressively hollow ground. I mean, this thing is wickedly thin behind the edge. I was worried. I kept feeling the edge for nicks, especially up here. Sorry, I'm not getting it. I kept feeling it because in the closed position, I was like, wow, it looks like it's touching. There must be a groove cut right there to just barely accept that. They jammed the widest blade possible into this frame. I thought for sure over time, the final edge of that is going to get nicked by the frame. Dead honest, it's perfect. It's perfectly fine, right? I mean, look how much blade they jammed into this. And by the way, how's the play? Literally identical to all of my high-end Microtechs. That one might have, I'm sorry, the Hera might have slightly less. It's about the same as the Combat Troodon. The Scarab is super tight. This is just a little bit, it's almost exactly the same as like, so you can hear it. It's about exactly the same, right? Typical OTF play. We're not going to have super solid, my Benchmade Infidel doesn't have any blade play. Sure it doesn't. Sure it doesn't. Glad you're enjoying it there though, fella. Yeah, it's going to be pretty typical. It's definitely going to have less play than the wet noodle that is the Benchmade Infidel. Yeah, I know it's super solid. And in the closed position, essentially nothing. Maybe a little bit. Almost nothing. I can't really hear anything. It's real tight. All the tolerances and everything. I'd really like to know who made this. But real tight. Real nice. No lanyard hole. Who cares? Seam, it's fine. Like there's the transition between the Ultim and the titanium here. It's fine. I like that the firing switch is the same material as the front. I hope they continue with that theme. I think that's really cool. Got the logo right here. Pocket clip is pretty good. On the texturing, there obviously needs to be a bald spot, especially if you're doing like a dedicated, whatever your dominant hand is. If you're only doing one side of the clip, we need to have a little bit of a bald spot. But truthfully, this frag texturing is incredibly non-aggressive. So in and out of the pocket, there's a nice ramp under there. I'd be lying if I said this caused like excess friction or anything. I just really had a good experience carrying this thing. It's not like this thing offers something spectacularly different than a lot of other OTS. Because what you're doing here is you're trading off, like, especially when you compare to something like the Guardian Tactical Recon 35 or the Microtech Ultratech, right? Those are super compact, right? The whole idea there is convenience, lightweight, compact, but still incredibly durable. You are trading off that lightweight compactness for a blade that cuts in every way better than your typical OTF, right? You're also trading it for general cool factor, which I think is great. Huge thumb up from me, because knives have gotten boring. And it's not that designers have collectively gotten lazy. It's just that we have been force-fed a tidal wave of generic designs. Stuff that would have been really impressive 5 to 10 years ago is now commonplace. So we're like, yeah, that's great. We've seen that before, right? You have not seen this before, unless you've just seen like the unboxing. But I'm saying, nobody's ever done an OTF quite like this. This is so different. This cool factor is worth it. Now, it's not going to be an aesthetic that everybody loves, but it is different, right? If you're a collector, an enthusiast, like this is probably got you salivating, especially if you can carry double action OTFs where you live. I mean, this is just super cool. And then on top of that, when everybody gets over the oohs and the ahs and everybody gets done playing with it and you go to actually use it, it freaking works really well. Like, it feels like a hardcore tool, man. Like, it's a joy to cut things with this. It's really amazing. And on top of that, 6364 Magna Cut, I think that's a great, I mean, you've got the slicing geometry. You got a big, wide, tough blade. I mean, this is a knife you can take out and use, right? Really, really great. I think I would opt for this blade shape. I honestly think I would. Yeah. I don't know if it will be this close. I mean, it looks like it's touching, but it's not. There's nothing there. There's nothing, there's no roughness out here. Like it's been rubbing, right? It slices incredibly, incredibly well. It is a laser beam. Oh, God. Yeah. All right. What is the price on this? This is going to be $300. That's pricey. That's pricey, right? You can get an American Guardian Tactical Recon 35, much smaller knife, for $300. You can get an American Microtech Ultratech. I think the base price is $311. You can get an American Kershaw Livewire in Magna Cut for what, $220? Wow. The Axial Shift, somewhere in there, right? Yeah, it is pricey considering, again, I'm assuming like the OEM says overseas. I'm guessing that means China, right? It's very precision. This is the type of precision, right, where nowadays it's like, it's gotta be China, right? I'd still like to know. I want to put an emphasis on that. Like, I want to know. And it's probably not EMP that's making that call. It's probably the OEM. Every time I hear about this, I find out that the OEM, whoever it is, and there's a number of them that do this, the OEM is the one saying, shh, shh, ooh, it's a secret. Like, why? OEM specifically, I'm not pointing the finger at EMP EDC. Why specifically to you OEMs? Why do you do that? Let us know who you are. Stop being all cloak and dagger. Like, come on. Oh my God, the pun there. They did a really good job. I would want my name on this. This is really cool. $300 is a lot of money. I can't say I've ever handled anything else that feels exactly like this, right? So running it up against your USA competitors, some people might look at that and say that this is overpriced and it's not that good of a deal. Then again, when you measure it against everything that exists in the knife world, which I like to look at all corners of things, right? So it depends on your perspective. You look at all corners, I've never seen anything like this, and it is made really well, right? A Chinese OEM that makes an incredibly high-end OTF with titanium on it, right? Again, that's a factor there. Yeah, I honestly would expect it to be somewhere in that $250 to $350 range. So I personally am not that upset. I love the firing power. I love how reliable it is. I love how satisfying it is. The cutting performance on this thing is amazing. He said that this pre-order is, they only ever plan to do this once, which I think is a bummer. I think you should make plans to continue to evolve this because, look, with my help or not, like reviewing this the day before, this thing's gonna go. Like, people are gonna buy this, right? I think the people who miss out on this are gonna be banging on your door for you to do another one of these, right? So, but I'm just relaying the message that I got on his Instagram or the post that he made public. You can go watch it, right? This information's there for everybody. He said they just plan to do it once, and the people who get in, you get it, right? And then if not, then sorry. But I think you should keep doing this. This is really cool. Do I recommend this? Well, to the average person, do you need to spend $300 on a pocket knife? If you watch my channel a lot, you'll know what my answer is. The answer is no. You don't need to spend $300 on a pocket knife. Nobody does, right? If you're going to spend $300 on this, you're going to spend $300 on it because you want it, because it's cool, it's different, right? It's probably different than anything you have in your collection. It is made incredibly well, and it's made with really, really nice materials. The types of materials that you would expect to see at the $300 price point. It's just super different, right? To the general audience member who watches my channel and buys knives in this general territory, does this stack up against the competition? Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. I would have no problem spending $300 on this knife. And I very much doubt that they're going to let me keep this. So I will be most likely right there with you guys ordering my own on Saturday. I do want to see the different variations, but if you're watching this right now and you've been looking for your next knife in the $300 territory and you can legally own and carry an OTF, this is your next knife. This thing is stupidly cool. This knife is definitely going in my favorite knives of all time playlist, which is different than my most recommended knives. I like to, have two separate playlists where I keep, things that really speak to me, even if I don't find them like appealing, from the perspective of the average knife user, right? The stuff that appeals to me as like a freak knife collector. Oh my God, yes, this is easily like one of my favorite things that I've ever handled on this channel. I love this. I love this knife so much. So yeah, in that sense, I highly recommend it. It'll be linked below. I hope you guys get your hands on one. I think you will be infinitely impressed and very satisfied. That's going to be it today, guys. Where did my card go? Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.